Support for Lab Out Loud is provided by NSTA, the National Science Teaching Association. Find out more about what NSTA has to offer at nsta.org. Uncertain times call for more certain education. Join the University of Cincinnati and earn your Master of Education from world-renowned faculty. 100% online classes provide the flexibility to advance your career and reach the next level. Learn more today at online.uc.edu/masters-of-education-programs. You're listening to Lab Out Loud, Science for the Classroom and beyond. And today our guest is bringing us some discussions about virtual science professional development conferences.
I should note we call this an unconference, and that would be Science is Cool, our virtual unconference. Yeah, we just started in April at the advent of COVID, and basically a conference where the attendees set the agenda. So this whole thing was done with surveys and asking. It's really taken off.
That's up next on Lab Out Loud, but first, I'm your co-host, Dale Basler.
And I'm Brian Bartel. You know, Dale, we've done this virtually for over a decade now. Like we were doing virtual before virtual was a thing.
That's like our old boss who doing podcasting before podcasting used to always say. Yeah, we have actually. It is kind of funny to think about that. And I guess my advice to listeners is that if what you're doing with your students right now, that sort of, this doesn't feel right, this isn't the same, this is it's too distant, that's all, first of all, normal. I think there's plenty of teachers that are like, this is not the kind of teaching that I signed up for back when I was, in college thinking about being a teacher. This is not the kind of teaching I've done all my career. However, I do feel, and I hate to be the guy that always says it gets better, that kind of stuff, but I
was thinking the same thing. And how do I not say that without saying it?
Yeah, I know. But I do feel like that connection is harder to build, but it does build in many cases. And so the fluidity of you and I doing this podcast, for example, even though we don't see each other,
for those of you who don't know, Dale and I are just in our basements doing this.
Yeah, we are in separate spaces, and we've always done this in separate spaces, not because both of us were infected with viruses way before this. It was just because it was
better recording.
Better recording, a matter of convenience, that kind of stuff, and then it just allowed us to kind of get things done. So it certainly can be done, but it takes some time for that connection, that sort of sync in voice and knowing and understand it, that takes time to kind of get there, and it's of course going to get harder and harder with each the more people you have, so more people students you have. So like when we have interviews with guests, there's always a little bit of talking before we start recording to kind of get that kind of feel about what that person's cadence is, and sort of try to sense,
and sometimes afterwards there's a huge chunk of this interview that you're not going to hear, not because we don't want you to, but it was a very we kept talking to our guest after the meat of the show.
Yeah, I think there's awkwardness in distance anything, but that awkwardness, if you stick it out, seems to taper off in many cases. Now,
well, think about when always, we started this, Dale. Think about you and I just were reading science news, some of our first episodes, and we were just kind of like, we wanted to do that versus we were forced to do it. But still, it was awkward. It was tricky. We learned a lot along the way. I see that a lot with teachers who have not felt comfortable in front of a camera before, where they have been catapulted into a world that it almost seems like it's not second nature yet, but some of the initial kind of fears and anxieties have started to melt away, and we see a lot of teachers really comfortable in front of their webcams, at least relatively from where they started, which was almost nowhere, to where they are now, and that's still growing. And here's another phrase that we don't always like to hear, is that building capacity. So it's one of those things where I think I've seen that so much more in tech than I ever realized I would see that, at least with teachers. So I applaud you, teachers. It's been fantastic watching this journey.
I think the other thing we remind ourselves is that we have this idea that students are geniuses at all of this stuff and that they're comfortable online. And I think that's a bunch of garbage, personally. I have 3 teens. Some of them do not want to turn their cameras on for Google Meet conferences for their school. They're uncomfortable about that. So I guess my point there is the kids are going through those same growing pains of virtual learning too. And we have to kind of just wait to ease into that comfort level for that, because it's different, every time. I mean, we all get goosebumps, or what is it?
Just a little anxiety.
Butterflies when you call somebody that you've never talked to before. And you got to be, kind of prepared. And I think the other thing now is it used to be you prep your class for the small audience of your students, but then if you had like a cooperating teacher and a supervising teacher from university kind of like watching that, well, then you got another person in there. And I remember talking to people like, oh, that's unsettling and it makes me feel weird, or the principal's in there and that makes me feel weird. But now we have parents in the background watching the lesson. And so there's all of that is all real, but I think we'll all start to get better at it and more comfortable with it. It is happening.
We are, yeah. It's exactly, and we will continue to get better at it. So, hats off to all of you teachers.
And then I really start thinking, and we're going to talk about this with our guest today, because I really start thinking about once we get there and we start having that, I wonder how that will affect our options when we don't have to be virtual because of a pandemic. I wonder how that'll affect our normal day-to-day things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When we have the choices and we realize we can do this, and we were forced into doing this. Yeah. What's on the other end? Great. Anyhow, let's get into the show.
Yes, let's meet our guest.
Well, my name is Dave Bakker, and I am the co-founder of PocketLab. Actually, it's Myriad Sensors, but people call us PocketLab. Nobody knows the company name. And also, I recently started the Science is Cool Unconference, and that's what we're here to talk about today.
Well, before we jump into that, you're a virtual parent right now, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's right. I have a kindergartner who just started, actually 2 weeks ago. It started really early. We're in San Jose, California, and for some reason they're early this year.
How's that going so far?
A kindergartner. Oh, yeah. My kids are high schoolers, so it is a little more self-cleaning oven for me.
I've got middle school. They're a little bit more just get up and go.
Yeah. Well, I have a range of ages. So I have 2 college age and then one caboose.
Got it. All
right.
Okay. But yeah, she's, actually I have to say it's going better than we thought it would go. I think we were just afraid of what's going to happen, but the teacher is fantastic, and our school district has done a pretty good job of getting everybody online. There were devices available, hotspots available. And I know that's a big issue, is getting internet connection for everybody. But they did a really good job of organizing things. And actually, our experience is pretty good. I would have to say, a kindergartner especially gets tired of sitting in front of the computer so long. It's a regular school day.
Mm-hmm.
But,
sure.
But it's better than I thought. It's very, very interesting. If you back up and think about it, it kind of, every school is the same now. There's no advantage to one school or the other. You basically are sitting in front of Zoom. You don't have the computer labs or resources or, sports teams or whatever. It's kind of changed things.
Well, we're in Wisconsin,
and
we do have some face-to-face schooling happening, actually. And, we're recording actually at the end of August right now for listeners. So we'll see what September brings.
Time will tell, yes, what will happen.
But Dale and I obviously work with a lot of teachers, and there is a lot of anxiety about what's to come on our first day of school. And, well, I'm going to redo that because my son is running through the house upstairs. It sounds like elephants trampling through, but there is a lot of anxiety with teachers in what the first day might bring. And there's part of me that I want to get over that hurdle. It's like this looming thing, and you want to just get past it. And I'm not saying that it's going to be easy by any means, and we're definitely going to have some issues, but there's that like just ready to start kind of feeling.
Yeah, and I can see too. This is week 2 week 3 for my daughter, and the first week was all technology issues for parents, teachers, and getting on Canvas and Clever and all the blended learning tools. It was just really, really hard.
So your daughter's using Canvas at the kindergarten level. It can happen, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, we kind of use it for her, but she's, kindergartners these days know their way around an iPad. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let me show you, Dad.
Yeah,
I think, the pandemic has, certainly foisted all these necessities on here that we would have never explored. But out of that is coming some kind of like fruitful, aha moments about, hey, look what we can do. I think that's really been kind of interesting in education and in a lot of other areas where it's kind of blossoming.
Yeah. Education is interesting. I'm in Silicon Valley, and my background prior to doing PocketLab is more, in the startups and business out here. And we're having a lot of discussions. Everybody is talking about what's going to happen. And, the thinking is that we're not going to go back to offices here in the Bay Area, or only partially back, because you don't need them. We've kind of proven that you don't need them. And, the office space is very expensive here. It's, very expensive real estate. And, in the office space, you're cramming people together. It's expensive. And if you can spread them out, you reduce the risk of people getting sick or whatever.
Sure.
So I think people are just not going to go back here.
On the other end of things, I know, though, that we, of course, went home in the spring, and there are some children who have really kind of underestimated how much they would have missed, how much they missed school, and they want to go back and physically, connect again. So, and we'll have that chance in the future, of course. But that's where we are right now.
Yeah, here's my question for you on that, though. So my daughter's starting kindergarten, and I remember my first day of kindergarten. I don't know if you guys do. It was such a big deal as a kid.
Yeah,
and she didn't get that, and now her reality is that school is online. She didn't know she went to preschool, but I don't think she really thought of that as school.
She doesn't know any different.
She doesn't know any different. And I'm wondering, maybe when she's older and she has to go to a building, she'll say, whoa, what are we doing this for?
Yeah, that is.
Oh my gosh.
We have that.
There'll be like
collective
kids
memory.
not wanting to go back to school. And it'll, I always think that like the back to school, the students I've always had, I think deep down they all enjoyed the first day back to school. That part was like, the buzz, seeing your friends, those kinds of things. But that's changed now. But maybe, yeah, you're right. Maybe that outlook will be totally different.
Did you do a first day back to school picture, Dave, with like with a device in hand? I've seen a lot of that. Like, you got to keep some routines.
That's pretty funny. We didn't think of that. We took a bunch of pictures. Weren't thinking of a back to school picture, but you're right. We have one somewhere.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, with the backpack and your jacket and your shoes and everything. And you walk to the kitchen, sit down.
Well, someone brought up the point that some families are actually enjoying this because there's less pressure for things like school shopping, for clothes, for new shoes, for uniforms perhaps, and other supplies that they will not need just yet or won't need at all perhaps. And that's a good eye-opener for us to remember what we sometimes ask students to get.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Now we've talked about students coming together to learn new things, but of course, this podcast is always about teachers coming together to learn new things. And like this show's been for over a decade, a virtual way for teachers to kind of connect to new things. And I understand that you've been involved with a project that has been doing that with essentially conferences.
Yeah, that would be Science is Cool, our virtual unconference. Yeah, we just started in April at the advent of COVID and the shutdown, and it's really taken off.
I love the little like eyeglasses under the cool sign there. Yeah, I didn't even notice that at first, and it's just something you'll miss.
So how did it start?
Well, we were getting ready to go to NSTA Boston, just like you guys, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it was canceled. We kind of expected Boston to be canceled, but it was probably announced, I think, 10 days before. I think we saw the writing on the wall. And we started, we were brainstorming on what could we do with that extra time. So we said, well, geez, why don't we just try and do a virtual conference, in place of NSTA? And we called a bunch of our buddies who would have been there anyway, people we usually go out after the show to have some beers with. And, they had nothing to do. Their calendars were cleared too. So we said, let's put together a virtual conference. We pulled together 10 people. And to our surprise, with a week, we had 3,000 teachers sign up.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. It was.
They must have just been starved for something.
Well, we should talk about why it was so many, because the subsequent events have had like 10,000 signups and way more, in the overflow and the live streaming.
And you definitely weren't anticipating that.
No. We would have been, when we were setting this up, we were saying, well, this is a lot of work. Is it going to be worth it? And we're thinking, well, if we get 200-300 people, we thought it'd be worth it. But, 3,000.
I have this visualization where it's like, the captain of the Enterprise like screaming down to Scotty, we need more power, for all of a sudden all these people starts coming on. Did you have to like quickly retool to prepare for all that?
We did. And even, we were unprepared the day of too. It's watching the Zoom fill up.
And do we have that many seats?
Yeah, well, that was the problem. We had, Zoom is not free. This is a free event, right? And we wanted to keep costs down. So, we opened up, I think the first one at 3,000 tier, and it filled up. And
wow,
we were surprised. And everything crashed too. It was really a bit of a panic.
Yeah, it's I'm amazed to see that level of interest within teachers, and I think that's been fantastic. What's fascinating is, we've had webinars in the past, and they've been kind of moderately attended. So that depends, of course, on the venue. So I'm not trying to this is pre-pandemic. So what I'm curious of is, does this relate to the work at home kind of feeling? And you kind of mentioned that too. Like, you're sitting around, you don't know what to do. We've been seeing some fantastically creative things with people when they have time in their hands, and obviously you're doing something for teachers instead of making cat videos. But at the same time, I'm wondering if teachers feel the same way. Like, I have time to do some of this now, and it is going to benefit my students. Have you gotten feedback from teachers?
We've gotten a lot of feedback, and actually, I should note, we call this an unconference, and turns out an unconference is a thing. You can Google it, and it's basically a conference where the attendees set the agenda. So this whole thing was done with surveys and asking and all that. So why, though, is it so popular? We just don't know exactly yet. I have some ideas, and I'd love to, you guys probably have some really good insights in this. But one thing we noticed for sure is that events like NSTA or ISTE, or, we have the California events, a lot of teachers, they can't go to those. They would love to, but, there's no budget. They have to get a substitute, maybe across the country travel. So I think a small fraction of the teachers who would love to go to that don't actually get to go. So there's this pent-up demand to see what was going on at that show. And I think that piqued a lot of teachers' interest.
Well, sure. We definitely see that too. I think even in Wisconsin, we're looking towards the future, and many of our districts have just kind of point blank said, we will not we will not allow you to attend conferences this year for a variety of reasons. And so that's actually put the kibosh on some of our state conferences that are coming up. We don't know what the health forecast is going to be in the spring, but districts have already kind of put the line in the sand for funding, for other substitutes and other reasons that's
controlling the spread of the virus is the first thought, but then just the fact that staffing is so stressed right now that they wouldn't be able to accommodate anybody leaving anyways. We're struggling with just normal staffing outages. Outages? You know what I mean?
Shortages.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I do actually, Dale kind of said you made a product, and he said, no, it's a project, but it really is a product. I think one thing that we have to remember too is that something like this, you're recording and people can access it later on. So instead of an ephemeral point in time like a physical conference, and I'm not knocking that. I love being able to have those connections, and you walk away with literature, maybe products, or a cool PocketLab sticker. Sometimes you kind of tuck that away in a drawer, but you're providing a service that can be accessed again. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. The videos are online. If you sign up, we send them out to you, and then a couple weeks later, we just put them on YouTube for general people. But yeah, it's something you can watch later, and they're also short segments. They're not very long, so they're easy to digest.
Yeah. Before we go too far, let's describe that a little bit. So a teacher is part of the unconference. What is that? How much time is it? What is it like? What's the experience like for a teacher?
Well, it's a day-long event. We start at 9 Pacific, and we finish around 5:30. And there's maybe about 10 different segments. And each segment is 30 minutes long, so 20 minutes talking and 10 minutes Q&A. And we try to keep it short to make it not this long PowerPoint gauntlet. And we try to keep it lively. And the Q&A, I think, is one of the things the teachers really appreciate. It's one thread all the way through, so there's no breakout rooms or anything like that. And we just go. We have 10-minute breaks, and it's on Zoom, so you sign up on Zoom. And on Zoom, that's where everybody is. That's where the big party is. We also usually will open it up because we have too many people for Zoom. We'll do a live stream on Facebook or YouTube. The last 3 have been Facebook. We'll probably stick with that. So
it's really kind of an organic thing. You're not building your own tool here. You're putting together different tools and using social media, things like that.
Yeah, and it's funny when you say product. It is kind of a product, and I just want to say too, I have to shout out to Jolyn Janis. She joined us as a Marcom person, Mark Communications Director for us in April. She was from Austin, and she was going to come out and visit us, and that got shut down. So her trial by fire was, hey, put on this conference, help us put this on. So she did all that the beautiful artwork, the landing pages. I think she came up with the Science is Cool, the little glasses logo. So Jolyn did a fantastic job. And I think that contributed. PocketLab, we're a small team, and we haven't really had a communications professional on the team. So she actually really raised the quality level of the material. So it just looked like, hey, this is more, it's not that we were a different team. It's just that we had better looking art. So we looked a lot more official. And I think that helped a lot.
After the break, we'll be right back. Become a leader in your school and advance your degree with a Master of Education, 100% online from the University of Cincinnati. Earn your Master of Education in Curriculum and Instruction or a Master of Education in Educational Leadership from world-renowned faculty. Get the world-class, life-changing, career-rewarding degree you deserve without sacrificing work and family commitments. Learn more today at online.uc.edu/masters-of-education-programs. And now, back to the show. Do you think that this type of, I know it's an unconference, but this type of conference, in comparison to the face-to-face, do you think those are attracting two different sets of people, so there isn't as much overlap? Or do you think that we're getting the same people? So there still could be some people that aren't participating in either. Do you understand where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I do. So the first thing, just backing up a little bit, about a third of our attendees are international.
Okay.
And no kidding, they sit on Zoom with us. So we have a lot from Asia that start at midnight, and they stay on Zoom until 7 in the morning. You wouldn't believe this audience. They're fans.
So a third.
A third. And then we have Europe, and they start late in the day, and they stay till 1 in the morning. So like when we end this, one of the things we learned is at 5 o'clock when we're signing off, we usually stay on and chat with the audience who are still on it. And it's usually, a couple thousand. And we'll ask, where are you from? And people that are from Portugal, they're from Europe, right? Well, what time is it? It's like 2 in the morning. And then we have a giant crowd from Asia, and they'll say, it's 7 in the morning here. You got to be kidding me.
Wow. And I thought Central Time was inconvenient when I was doing my first one of these. It's all perspective, right?
Well, we had, the last two, we had more than 100 countries.
Wow.
You need one of those maps with the pins on it to
we do.
We've had this many visitors, or visitors from this part of the world.
Have you considered time shifting like a future one so that it would be like during the day for Asia?
Yeah, we've talked about that. So we did time shift a little bit. We're going to do it on a Saturday. So ScIC 4 is officially October 24th. It's a Saturday. And how did we pick Saturday? We surveyed the audience, and they said it's just much easier to do PD on a Saturday.
Sure.
So that was one thing we learned. We were thinking about time zones, and the problem is whatever you pick is going to be inconvenient for somebody. And you can always go back and listen to the recorded session. So we're not sure about that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Let's think about that though, from your first, ScIC 1 to, upcoming in 4. What kind of things have you learned? I'm kind of thinking about a teacher starting a virtual classroom and you mentioning too, like we had some struggles and things, we weren't fully prepared on day one. We're going to see that with classrooms as well. But what kind of things have you learned from that first conference that you've adapted besides time shifting?
You mean for the conferences, or just learned
and how you present them, or have some things worked better than others?
Yeah, so we have worked a lot on the presentations to make them more interesting for the audience. The first one, we literally had no time to prepare. We called our buddies, like Killer Snails and Teacher Geek and Paul Anderson, and said, hey, you want to do this? And everybody's like, yeah, okay. So we put together a schedule and just let people do what they wanted to do. So since then, we've kind of learned from feedback too, shorter is better. So there's no reason for somebody to talk 45 minutes about a product or a service or something. It's too long. So make it shorter, make it more interactive. So that's why we do the presentations, 30 minutes, 20 minutes talking, 10 minutes Q&A, and then I'll jump in and do the Q&A. And we get a lot of feedback that people like the Q&A. They like the interaction even more. And what happens, people type questions into the chat, so they feel like they're, they have some agency in it. And we try to answer as many as we can. So that helps a lot. We've learned the next conference, we're going to try to break it out where K-5 is in probably the first half, and then middle school, high school in the second half. So if you're K-5, it's come half a day. If you're middle school, come to the second half of the day. So we're working on that. Those are learnings. I think the format, we figured out this whole streaming thing. How to get people on Zoom, and then if it overflows, how to stream it somewhere. So those kinds of things. Those are the main...
You're not physically spinning up servers or anything.
No. Yeah, fortunately. Those are the main things. And, it's kind of interesting. The concept and the format hasn't changed that much. I think one of the things that helps make it successful is it is one stream through. So you don't break up the audience and you don't have these breakout rooms and everything. The interaction happens in the chat, and that seems to work for us. Yeah.
And you come when you can.
Right. That's right.
I wonder if another factor to the success, as I'm thinking about this, is like you mentioned more and more people joining, is that, when I think about the teachers I work with, I had this conversation yesterday, like this pandemic has essentially made us all able to do a video conference. Like last year at this time, there were people I worked with, they'd be like, someone's asking me to do a video conference, and they were like totally freaked out. And now you can pretty much go to any teacher and they're like, yeah, I've been in those. I know everything. So like the comfort level of joining these kinds of things has just shot up.
Yeah, for sure. And the first conference too, it was kind of funny because people were joking about being on Zoom, and a few of the presenters would have a minor technical issue and then get it sorted. Mm-hmm. And then the chat would be like, yeah, that's me. Right. So
they can identify with that kind of a thing.
That's right. I think so. And I think people, we've had presenters where, the kids come into that room while they're presenting. My daughter showed up in one of the breaks. And people like that. I think people feel like, I'm suffering with this too.
It's humanized us. And I think we underestimate that sometimes. And again, working with teachers, they want to be on the stage in some ways where they almost don't want to see the wizard behind the curtain and all the things they have to do to prep. But some of this has actually put that more front and center in a sense. And I think that's good for us to somewhat expect students are going to learn with us along the way, and we're going to make mistakes, and that's okay.
Well, I agree, and I think we're learning a really useful skill. Just chatting with some friends the other day, I was thinking, what if COVID happened in the 90s and we didn't have, right? You didn't even have GPS in your phone, probably.
Oh, gosh.
Right?
And you only had one phone in the house.
That's right, a landline. So what would schools do? This would be a real problem. So now we have this amazing video conferencing tool, and it's pretty good, and this is going to drive the quality. So wait 5 years and it'll be way better. So this is actually a really useful skill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Dave, what are plans for the future? You said you have an October conference, ScIC 4. Anything you can tell us there, or do you have other plans for other things?
Yeah, we do. So we're doing another full-day conference, October 24th.
Now, does that have a theme, or?
Yeah, we're working. The theme comes up kind of as we're getting the presenters in. And this is, again, going to be remote learning. But I think we're going to try and focus in more on real tools that you can use. So my sense of things are that we have a big issue with science remotely. Like, how do you do science labs remotely? How do you get the devices to the kids or the kits or whatever, whether you're using PocketLab?
Can't get the webcam too close to the to the Bunsen burner.
Yeah.
What would you say was the theme of 1, 2, and 3?
Well, it was remote learning. Just what's this new reality going to be like, and how are we going to deal with it, and what are resources to help you deal with it. Now we're kind of still on the remote learning, of course, but now let's dig a little deeper into, let's really do it. And a lot of the guests we're having are going to talk more to things you can actually, now let's do some science remotely and figure out how to do it.
Okay. And how many presenters during the unconference were there for the day?
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. 10 presenters. 10? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it just goes through the schedule of the day. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, but you were talking about 4.
Well, okay. No, so October 24th, we have a few really good presenters confirmed. I believe I can announce it here. I'll say these are tentative. They're not 100% confirmed, but they're 90%ers. We have a Lego is coming. We have the Smithsonian Museum. They have some amazing online resources. They're coming.
They do.
We have I think we're going to get the Biomimicry Institute. It was really fascinating. I don't know if you've seen any of their presentations.
Oh yeah.
We have SDs coming again. We actually have a special. This is something we kind of learned from teachers too. We have a special session where we have a grant writing expert who's going to come on and talk about some specific grants that you could get for, and we're going to have the agency doing the grants on with us. So that's confirmed. I'm trying to think, who am I missing here? And we're going to have Star Talk again to do the kickoff.
Okay.
And we have about 4 open slots. We have a bunch of people we're going to fill into those. I think Paul Anderson is going to come again. I talked to Paul. I got to tell you, you guys probably know Paul. He's in your neck of the woods. And he is the most popular request. Everybody's saying, get Paul Anderson again. So Paul,
he was supposed to come to our Wisconsin conference that just got physically canceled. So I don't know if there's going to be a readjustment of that virtually or not, but that was going to be a big draw. And we actually snagged him and not Chicago for the NSTA conference.
Yeah, he's really popular. Well, if you listen to him, you know why. He's just so smooth.
Absolutely.
He knows what he's talking about. So Paul and I, we may do a session on assessments. Like, how do you do science assessments with remote learning? Which is a very interesting question. He's actually interested in that. And if we do a session, that's what will be. I wouldn't say it's completely confirmed yet, but that's what we're talking about.
Okay. Anything else that we might be looking at in the future?
Well, we do have a couple other really big events. So we're trying to, the idea I have is we'll do these day-long events about once a quarter. That's about, I think, all teachers can handle. And in between, we want to fit in maybe monthly or bi-monthly smaller events. It turns out we have 2 in the 3rd week of September. It's called Climate Week, New York City. So,
and that's actually going to come out right after this podcast airs.
Exactly, same week. And we're doing 2 events. One is with Star Talk, again with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and it's going to be on the situation we're in with climate. And we're going to have several guests on those. Some friends of ours. We're going to be on. I'll be on that for one of the segments, and that's going to be on the 23rd at 7:30 Eastern time, and that'll be a live stream Star Talk event. So I expect that'll have a huge audience.
Oh wow! And listeners, we will have information in the show notes for you.
Yeah. That's right. And it's on the, we'll put the links for Climate Week, and it's on the Climate Week agenda, I think, already. Then on Saturday, we're doing another event with Chuck Nice. So Chuck is Neil's co-host. If you've ever watched any of the Star Talk episodes, he's a comedian, and he lives in New Jersey. And he turns out he is also a climate activist, and he really loves to organize events and talk about issues and bring people into the dialogue. So he has an event on Saturday, the 26th. It's 10 a.m. Eastern time, I believe. And that is a 2-hour dialogue. He has several political figures coming, like the mayor of New Jersey, so pretty high level. So several cities. He has some celebrities coming. We're going to be on that. We have some climate scientists coming, like Catherine Hayhoe, as very big name, and that's going to be a great event too. So those are coming, and we're also doing if that's not enough, we're doing another event with a interesting partner of ours called Creative Learning Systems. They're out of Colorado, and they developed these backpacks that are science kits that get sent home with kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. They, what I like about it is they figured out everything, like what needs to be in the kit. I think there's 18 activities in the backpack. and they can be checked out, and then the students can go home and do the activities collaboratively with their virtual lab group because they all have the same kit.
Okay.
And is it meant to be their backpack or an additional backpack to carry?
It's a checkout backpack.
Oh, okay.
Like you check.
You don't put Lunchables in there and things like that.
Well, I was actually curious. No, I was actually curious, Dave, about that with obviously with PocketLab that you have these platform sensors, and do you see schools purchasing these to send home with kids?
We do. We're busy as we can possibly be. There's a lot of schools looking at how to do this, and
oh, sure,
that's almost a whole nother show. And someone's gonna. If this was Dr. Zorba, someone would call me on the grammar because I said a whole nother. I realize that a whole other show.
Whole other. So yeah, you gotta be careful what you say in front of teachers. Actually, you'll get emails correcting.
It's humble.
You can't red pen an audio podcast.
It's funny.
Humanizing me.
Not one of our listeners is going to try.
I think that we got this first lesson when we were starting PocketLab and we were developing our email list, and we sent out an email with a spelling error in it, and we just got all these support tickets like correcting us, scolding us actually.
Oh, geez.
It's funny though with assisting teachers on some of those things right now. They sometimes appreciate that because those are things that they can control. It's like, I can fix this. There's things that I can't fix, but I can fix this.
Yeah. It's pretty funny.
Well, Dave, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to connecting on the Science is Cool platform and some of your future projects and products, and we wish you the best.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait till we get together in person. I don't know when it's going to be, but that's going to be a lot of fun.
Deal.
Agreed. Thanks for listening to this episode of Lab Out Loud. If you'd like to learn more about some of the things discussed in this episode or previous episodes, you can find show notes at our website, laboutloud.com. If you have a guest idea or a future topic that you'd like to see on Lab Out Loud, go to our contact page and send us a message. Also, you can subscribe to Lab Out Loud on your favorite podcasting app, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you like to find podcasts. While you're there, leave us a review and rating. Your input helps others find our show. Thanks again for listening.